Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The mind is constantly giving us messages, giving us words, giving us instructions, giving us ideas. It doesn't stop. And we, each of us, has to deal with this. There's a story of a man who came to a sheikh, and he said to him, "My mind is giving me very troubling words. I am in danger. What can I do?" The sheikh took him outside, and there was a strong wind blowing. And he said, "Open up your robe and catch the wind." And he opened up his robe, and he said, "I can't catch the wind." He said, "Like that, you can't stop the mind. But what you do have to do is be firm and constant in standing against it." So as we are bombarded by all of the messages and signals and words we get from the mind, we have to understand and know the difference between what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And we have to learn to stand in opposition to our mind. If you talk to mentally ill people who do, let's say, crazy things, like jumping from a bridge, if they survive and you ask them why they did it, their response will be, "My mind told me to do that." Well, we have to learn that just because our mind tells us to do something doesn't mean that we have to do it. It also doesn't mean that there's any sense to it. The mind rambles. The mind picks up all of the things that it sees in the world. The mind repeats what it sees in the world. So if you see a crazy movie, 2 days later, you may see some of the things in the crazy movie traveling through your mind, telling you to do the things that were done in the movie for no other reason that the mind saw it, and it's just repeating what it saw. So we have to learn to disengage from our own mind, and at the very least, filter what goes through our mind, filter what we're told by our mind, and filter the actions that we take on behalf of what the mind tells us to do. Much of understanding truth and understanding reality is understanding how our mind works and understanding how we work and understanding our attitude towards things. As we develop appropriate attitudes, we can become more and more in line with the straight path, in line with the truth, in line with reality, and in line with doing what we're supposed to do. Many people talk about all of the veils that separate us from the truth. And some people spend their lifetime trying to figure out what these veils are. We should understand that it is not for us to figure out the unseen. You can't figure out the unseen. When you are ready to know the unseen, it'll be shown to you. But it's not going to happen because you will it to happen. What we should be doing is looking at our own faults, looking at the things that drive us from the truth. And as we get hold of these things and remove these things from our being, this is the key to lifting the veils that separate us from the truth. So don't look to the veils to take them away. Look to the faults to take them away. Don't try to understand the veils that are separating you. The veils will be lifted when the faults are done away with. When we come to the point where we begin to understand what it is that's troubling us. Nasruddin was talking to a group of people, and he said, when I was young, I thought I could wake up everybody. I could save the world. In my middle age, I finally came to the conclusion that maybe I could just help the ones who are close to me. And now that I'm old, I ask God to please allow me to just know myself and have myself be saved. And this is a progression that took him a long time to come to. We cannot help anyone else until we help ourselves. We cannot save anyone else until we are saved. We cannot enlighten anyone else until we are enlightened. So again, it comes back to what is the work that you do to bring yourself to the state where you can become more, where wisdom will kick in, where you will understand more. And again, it comes back to doing away with the faults within us. So instead of preaching to the world, we need to preach to ourselves. Instead of changing the world, we need to change ourselves. The Quran says that if you save one person, you have saved the entire universe. And who is that one person who is to be saved? For each of us, it's ourselves. So our first duty is to save ourselves. Our first duty is to do away with all of the evil inclinations or all of the inappropriate inclinations that exist within ourselves. The egocentric self has a tendency to be satisfied with the self. The egocentric self, the mind and the way it works, doesn't want to put blame. It only wants praise. So it becomes satisfied with what it does. It becomes satisfied with its state. It doesn't see the need for improvement. But it should be understood that being satisfied with the self is the root of every disobedience. Being satisfied with the self is the core of all wrongdoing, because being satisfied with the self is beyond humility. Being satisfied with the self means that you have concluded that the self knows what it needs to know and its actions are appropriate. And that state doesn't come until you've reached truth. So we should be constantly in a state of searching for truth and never being satisfied that we've reached that state, never being satisfied that we've gotten to that state. But also, at the same time, we have to understand that if God punished everyone for all of the wrong things that they've done, there would be nobody left in the world. So we have to understand who we are and the fact that we make mistakes and that all men make mistakes. So as opposed to emphasizing the faults within ourselves, we should emphasize God's mercy and compassion, because God's mercy and compassion is overwhelming. And we need to understand that his mercy and compassion is overwhelming. And the fact that we're still here, the fact that we still exist, is proof of his mercy and compassion. But understanding that shouldn't stop us from also working on our faults, because as we remove our faults, we become closer to his serenity, we become closer to his compassion, and we are more able to see his constant involvement in our lives and his caring for us and helping us along the way. So, as opposed to being self-satisfied, we have to begin to understand that the best actions that we can take are from selfless intention, without expectations. Imagine doing what you're doing, but with selfless intention and without expectations. If we do that, then there is a certain ease to what we do. There's a certain harmony to what we do, and we accomplish things without understanding even their worth, because it becomes so easy for us because we're not attached. Yet we may do very, very profound things while in this state. If you watch the Sheikh, there is an ease to what he does. There is a simplicity to what he does. There is a naturalness to what he does. And there is also very evident that there is a non-involvement in what he does, even though he does absolutely incredible, miraculous things. He has given up his involvement to allow Allah's involvement. He has given up his will for Allah's will. So since he is merely becoming a tool used by Allah to accomplish things, there is no personal attachment to what goes on, and an ease comes into that being. An ease comes into that state. When you have a difficulty and you are attached to the difficulty and you try to resolve the difficulty with the attachment, there is a constant state of fear. There's trepidation, there's uneasiness, and there is also a constant viewing the situation as to what may occur. There is expectation. And if that expectation isn't going the way that you want it to go, all of a sudden, anxiety enters into your system. Stress enters into your system. But if you can remove yourself from the expectation and you can conclude that what Allah has in store for you will be appropriate, you will find that you can move easier through acting the way that you need to act. So if we can be absent in witnessing what we're doing, as opposed to being involved as if we are the doer, if we can be absent and allow Allah to be the doer, then our travel through this world, our travel through all of the actions that we have to accomplish in this world become much easier. But this is not easy to do. This takes establishing within ourself an understanding that there is a correct way to do things and an incorrect way to do things. There's a story that Bawa tells about a tree at a crossing and a group of men at the tree, and they're all crazy men. And there's papers flying around this sort of a place that's a little discarded. And all of these men interact with the place that they're in. And there are papers strewn around this place. And each one of them has a different kind of craziness. One is crazy about love. So every piece of paper he picks up, he thinks is a love letter from somebody who is enamored by him. And he says, oh, she's coming to see me soon. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. She loves me so. I love her so. She keeps writing me all these letters. I can't even get all of them. The next one is crazy about money. And he sees each piece of paper as a banknote. And he said, oh, this is from this bank, and this is from that bank, and this is so much, and this is that much. All of his thoughts are centered on money. Another one there who's centered on drinking. And he drinks himself into a stupor. Finally, he falls dead to the world. Robbers come by, take his clothes, leave him there just about naked. He runs home to his wife and blames her for his drunkenness, blames his family for his problems. And then there's another one there, and he's crazy about wisdom. And he says, oh God, I don't understand this crazy world. I have become crazy looking for you. And I know that the only answer to all of my problems is you. The only solution to all of my problems is you. The only doctor to all of my problems is you. I myself can't make any sense out of any of this. I myself can't find my way in this world. You have to help me. And he goes on like this over and over and over for years. Finally, his heart opens and he's enlightened. He begins to see and understand reality. The only solution to all of our problems, the only solution to all of our difficulties is to surrender to Allah, to become the slave of the master, to become the one who gives up his will for the will of God. And in doing that, the truth can be found and reality can be brought into our lives. It is the only way out. There is no other way out. So we have to become ones who understand the nature of our existence and the nature of who we are. All of the men with power or supposed power in this world think they are the doers, think they are the ones who are accomplishing what's going on. they don't have the understanding that everything is in God's hands and everything is in God's will. And as long as we interpose ourselves as the doer, all of the difficulties of this illusory world will attach themselves to us. All of the sorrow, all of the stress, all of the anxiety, all of the loss, all of the trauma that this world has to offer will be part of our life. And we should understand that as long as we live within the illusory world, that all of these things are going to happen to us. Stress, anxiety, difficulty, sorrow are going to happen to us. Because as long as you are involved with illusion, this is what's going to occur. And you should get to the point where you understand that this world has sorrow as part of its inherent nature. That's the way things are. And if you live in illusion, sorrow is going to follow you. If you live in illusion, stress and anxiety are going to follow you. As long as you are separate from Hak, separate from reality, separate from truth, all of these other things are going to follow you. But if you can transfer yourself into not being involved with the illusory world, but in fact hold as the most important thing your relationship with Allah and your knowledge of Allah and your dependence on Allah, things will begin to change for you. But until that happens, you are going to be subject to the trauma that illusion causes. And we, each of us, has to understand that illusion causes trauma. So you're either in reality or you're in illusion. And reality is where the qualities of God exist. Reality is where peace exists. Reality is where contentment exists. Reality is where grace and mercy and compassion exist. Illusion is where destruction exists. Because as you can see within the created universe, things are constantly dying and being reborn. And as you are within that, that's what's happening to you. You are dying and being reborn. And this can happen 50 times in a year. The trauma, the death trauma, the death difficulty, and then you come back and you try again and you go through that same thing again, over and over and over, until somehow you can escape from this constant finding yourself and losing yourself and thinking that you can do and then realizing you can't do, and then going through the trauma and the sorrow and the difficulty of constant losing your expectations and coming into difficulty because, or mental difficulty because you didn't get your expectations. Expectations lead to mental difficulty. Expectations lead to sorrow. Expectations lead to trauma. And until we relieve ourselves of expectations, we can't relieve ourselves of the trauma of expectations that aren't met. So can we begin to do things from a selfless orientation without personal expectations? Can we put ourselves in a place where we act without depending on things to happen, where we act without depending on rewards for ourselves, where we act without concluding that if we don't get what we want, we're worse off than we should be? Somehow, we have to learn how to walk through this world without expecting things. Somehow, we have to learn that this world and what we attain in this world is not like a profit and loss statement. So many people think it is. You've either made progress in this world or you haven't made progress in this world, as if this world is keeping track of what you're doing, as if it is a contest in what you can achieve in this world. We have to remove ourselves from the contest within this world and understand that our contest is not what happens in this world, but what happens in the next world. Because as all of the wise men say, this world is like the blink of an eye. The coming and going is like the blink of an eye. We enter and we leave. We enter and we disappear. What stays with us is not how much money we made or how much fame we had or the wealth that we've acquired or how many things we've conquered within this world. What stays with us is what is the extent of our attachment to Allah's attributes? What is the extent of our integrating Allah's qualities into our being? What is the extent of our connection to that which is non-elemental, to that which we cannot see, but to that which is the elevated qualities of existence that come from our Lord? What is the extent of salam, peace, within us? Now, these are not the things that register in the mind. These are the things that register in the heart, that register in the soul that is within the heart. So how have we fed our soul in this world? Have we spent all of our time feeding our mind and feeding our body, but we've bypassed feeding our soul? And how do we feed our soul? What is the food for our soul? And the food for our soul is selflessness, compassion, mercy, love, kindness, and this is what makes our soul grow. This is what makes our soul resonate. This is what brings us into elevated states. Now, we should all be very aware of what degraded states are and what elevated states are. We should know what is godly and what is earthly, what is in reality and what is in illusion. We have to make that the study of our life. What is truth and what is a lie? What is right and what is wrong? And all of these need to be seen and viewed with God's perspective, not with the world's perspective, because the world will always lie to you. The world will tell you that certain things are important when in truth they are not important at all. The world will tell you that your fame is important, your wealth is important, your pride is important, respect is important. But all of these things come from men. All of these things are relative to men. But in reality, it all comes down to, how is your situation with Allah? How is your situation with God? What have you done to satisfy your Lord? What have you done to bring your Lord close to you and to understand his truth and his reality? What is the true intention of your being? To succeed in this world or to succeed in the next world? To hoard what this world has to give you, or to hold on to that which has no form, which will be what takes you into the light world, what takes you into the world of God's kingdom. The world of God's kingdom has no form. Everything that you hold on to that has form is not going to help you in God's kingdom. What's going to help you in God's kingdom is obtaining the formless as your treasure, obtaining the formless as that which you hold on to, that which you begin to understand, that which you know, that which you integrate yourself with, and that which becomes the forefront of your intention, the forefront of your consciousness, the forefront of what it is that you do and the reason why you do it. So the reason that we do things should be because of compassion. The reason that we do things should be because of mercy. The reason that we do things should be because of love. And it's not love and mercy and compassion for ourselves. It's love and mercy and compassion for all of God's creation. Allah is giving constantly to everything and everybody. And if we are to become like him, we need to be giving to everything and everybody, not just hoarding things for ourselves. You can't hold on to love for yourself. Love that isn't given doesn't exist. Compassion that isn't given doesn't exist. Mercy that isn't given doesn't exist. So as you give, so shall ye receive. As mercy flows from your being, where does that mercy come from? It comes from God. And you now become a conduit for that mercy. And that mercy flows through you. Compassion comes from God. And as you give compassion, what happens? Compassion flows through you. You become a conduit for that compassion, which comes from God. And God is an unending source of these qualities. You can never give away more than God can give you. So as you give compassion, because it's God's purpose to be compassionate in this world, he gives you more compassion. As you give mercy, because it's God's purpose to give mercy in this world, he gives you more mercy, because you now become his vice regent. You become the one who helps spread his qualities throughout the world. You become his aid in the dissemination of himself. And as you disseminate him, he gives you of himself. And what greater treasure is there in existence than to have Allah's qualities, Allah's being within you. This is the purpose of our existence. This is the reality that we are looking for. This is the truth that we are trying to encounter. And to do this, we have to give up all of our fascination with this illusory world. We have to give up all of our expectations within this illusory world. We have to focus towards that which is truth, not that which is impermanent, that which is temporary. Truth is eternal. Allah is eternal. Our focus must be towards that which is eternal. Otherwise, we lose our ability to become eternal. Our path, our straight path towards Allah, our straight path towards becoming eternal, has to do with our understanding of what is illusion and what is reality. And we have to be strong in that understanding. Just as we can't catch the wind, we can't catch our mind. But in the same way that we can't catch our mind, we have to be steadfast against our mind. And to do that, we need a sheikh who tells us the truth to counteract the lies of the mind. Satan whispers into the ear, which goes into the mind, which goes to try and take you from truth. And we have to be resolute in our understanding that this world is not the truth. Satan's lies are not the truth. The mind's meanderings and wanderings and inclinations are not the truth. The only truth that exists are Allah's qualities and Allah's attributes. And we have to take those on as the treasure that we are collecting in this world. So the world goes mining for gold. Wise men go mining for God's qualities. And we have to decide whether we want to be those who find their treasure in this world or find their treasure in their Lord. And we have to make that decision. And we need to make that decision every moment, every instant, every day, over and over and over. There is no end to making that decision. You are given a choice in this world. And people think their choices are, what kind of car am I going to buy? What kind of house am I going to live in? Who am I going to marry? These aren't really the choices. The choices are, do you choose the world or do you choose God? And if you're on this path of the truth, you've learned that we must constantly choose God over and over and over. And we choose him by choosing his qualities. So we choose him by letting go of the elemental and choosing the formless. Compassion is without form. Mercy is without form. Love is without form. But their strength is stronger than anything in this world. And if love would spread through the entire world would change and focus towards reality, focus towards the truth, focus towards God. Now, we can't expect the entire world to change. We can't think that we can change the entire world, but we can expect ourselves to change. And we can expect ourselves to go on the straight path. So let us not look around us. Let us not look in every direction to see what everybody else is doing. We have to look and see what we are doing. And we have to focus straight towards that truth so that we come to know our Lord, we come to know ourself, and in that knowing, the truth becomes unveiled to us, and we see reality. It will happen for each and every one of us if we keep our intention that way. We must believe in God's mercy and God's compassion. We have to believe that his mercy and compassion are stronger than all of the satanic influences in this world. We have to believe that his mercy and compassion are stronger than all of the hypnotisms and magnetisms of this world. He wants us to know him, and we have to set the intention also to know him. May it come to pass that each of us reaches that pinnacle of understanding where we know our Lord. May it be so for each and every one of us. Ameen, ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.